Hello and welcome to episode 375 of AvTalk. I am Ian Petchnick, here as always with
Jason Rabinowitz. Ian, it was a pleasure hanging out with you this past weekend.
It was a lot of fun.
Or weekday before last weekend. I don't know. Time is tricky right now.
Yeah, I think time still does not matter, but
it led into the weekend. It did.
It did. We had a good time in Cleveland for a bit. We got to do some plane spotting. We had a good time down in Akron for a bit with the Goodyear blimp, though unfortunately we did not get to fly it.
We did not. Had a nice afternoon in Cleveland, like you said, Ian. And then the folks at what was the official name that Apple told us we left our stuff at? The Wingfoot Lake Airship Operations Balloon Port.
Yes.
Were outstanding. Everyone at Goodyear was exceptionally welcoming. They literally opened every door except the hangar door and said, okay, here's everything. Have at it. Go talk to anyone. Go look at anything. Go touch anything. But the hangar door must stay closed because Cleveland, you done us dirty, and it was a little too windy, and they couldn't take the blimp out of the blimp hangar, which is disappointing. But there is more blimp to come. We promise.
Much more blimp to come. So what we did end up doing, and this actually, I think, worked out really well because we weren't flying and we didn't have to spend time getting the blimp out of the hangar and then flying on it, which still would have been awesome. But
what a burden.
We had a chance to talk with some extremely knowledgeable and very interesting folks who have been blimping for a very long time. So that video will come out on our YouTube channel in a few weeks, well, about a month from now, because we've got some other stuff that we're working on to hopefully add a bit more footage to that particular video. But because he was such an awesome person to talk to, and because he knows basically everything there is to know about the Goodyear blimp, we are going to have Goodyear's chief pilot, Michael Dougherty, on this podcast in the near future so that he can share with us and with you all a bit more about what it's like to operate one of only 4 of the NT airships around the world. And just an extremely engaging, knowledgeable, and wonderful person to talk to. So we're going to have him on the show as soon as we can. So stay tuned for that and stay tuned for even more blimp content.
Yeah, that was a fun walk through the history of Goodyear and their history with airships and all that. And talking to Doc was great because he's one of those few people who can say, I am the only person in the entire world who can do X. And I believe what was he? The only certified...
He's the only dedicated pilot examiner for airships, these particular airships in the world.
The only person in the entire world. That's quite the resume buster right there.
Exactly.
There's literally no one else who can do what he does. And it was a really, really great chat. Looking forward to some more blimp, Ian, and it's good news that the blimp just happens to be going to Oshkosh and also here in New York in like a month span for both locations. Okay. So weird, it's following us home.
We'll hopefully have much more to share soon and have an interview with Doc on the show as soon as we possibly can. Well, Jason, Gabe, and I were in Ohio. Our colleague Sophia was in Berlin. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who stopped by, met up with Sophia during ILA Berlin, and had a great time. I know a bunch of you all who listen to the podcast met up with her. So that was great to hear about. And she learned some very interesting things about how you stack the display aircraft into a very small area when you are dealing with things like A350s, A380s, and some smaller fighter jets as well. How does all of that go into basically the world's largest and most expensive game of Tetris? So some very fun stuff there.
Carefully. You do it carefully.
Exactly. You do it very, very carefully. So thank you to everyone who stopped by and was able to say hello. Jason, let's get to the meat of things. Late last week was the first anniversary of the crash of Air India Flight 171. And Indian investigators released a progress report, such as it is, an interim statement on the progress of investigation into the accident involving Air India Flight AI 171. This is an ICAO Annex 13 mandated statement should a final report not be available within a year of the accident. So they released a statement of progress because they have said they have not yet completed their investigation. They further say, and I'm quoting here, significant progress has been made in the examination and analysis of aircraft systems, flight recorder data, engine-related components, maintenance and operational records, and other evidence relevant to the investigation. Further quoting, the evidence gathered and the results of various examinations are currently being analyzed in comprehensive and integrated manner. Additional technical evaluations and specialist examinations, wherever considered necessary, will continue to be undertaken to ensure that all findings and conclusions are supported by verified evidence and sound scientific analysis. Great. The investigative update provides no new information whatsoever
Fantastic.
on the actual investigation itself.
That's a lot of words to say a whole lot of nothing. I hope they are actually doing.
That was 2 paragraphs in a 9-paragraph statement.
Yeah, basically just saying, we're working on it.
Yes.
We promise. I hope it's not a China Eastern situation where they have possibly concluded their investigation and will never release it. This doesn't feel like that. It's just much slower than anyone would like. But you can't be mad if they are actually truly making progress and they are not yet ready to actually make conclusions. You just have to actually get to the conclusion part at some point sooner rather than later. So we will sit and we will wait, but hopefully this doesn't become a years-long situation.
Yeah. I would have liked to have seen a bit more information about the focus of the investigation in this, perhaps what they've been doing, what still needs to be done in order to get to a conclusion. I think that would have been helpful here. I know that I'm not alone in being not entirely satisfied with this particular update. And as Jason mentioned, we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where investigators just don't release a report. And I agree with Jason. I don't think that's what we're looking at here. I don't think we're going to see a situation where India's AAIB just doesn't release a report, but it would be helpful to know what still needs to be done. What are we still working on?
Yeah.
In order to begin coming to a conclusion.
Typically, if there is any sort of major revelation during the investigation process, they would communicate that to other regulators, other investigatory bodies. That,
especially if there was a safety issue that needed to be corrected.
That has not seemed to have occurred in this situation. So it's not like, so far, we can assume they have not discovered like, oh, there is an actual massive issue with the fuel cutoff switches and this needs to be dealt with. If that was the case, they certainly would have communicated that to literally everyone possible, but it hasn't happened. So whatever path they're going down to take this investigation, well, we don't quite know what they're investigating and what progress has been made. So hopefully that wraps up soon. But yeah, not much more to bring us at this point, which is disappointing. Yeah. But I guess on the other end, I kind of understand that until it's done, they don't want to say much because then people will run with whatever they say and say, oh, they still need to look into this. Then it must be the cause. If this is what's taking so long, then this thing they're looking at now still must be the issue. Like that's kind of the way the media and the social atmosphere takes things now. So on the one hand, I kind of understand why they don't want to say, here's what we've done and here's what's left. On the other hand, I really want them to do that because it's been too long.
That's a good point to make about what would happen if they did, in fact, release a more substantive statement. That's fair. After more than a decade of negotiation throughout the European Council and European Parliament, we get roughly the same passenger rights as we had before a decade of negotiations. Under the new rules, which are very similar to the old rules, passengers will continue to benefit from compensation for lengthy delays and cancellations. The benefit of free cabin baggage will continue. This is really about the same. There will be no fees on cabin baggage. So if you're flying an ultra low cost carrier or low cost carrier like Ryanair or EasyJet, you get a free personal item, which, okay, great. The price of tickets and the search portals that you can use to book your fares, that will always now show the carry-on luggage ticket price at the beginning of the booking process. But airlines can offer less expensive tickets to people who then voluntarily say, I don't want hand luggage.
Yeah, this is kind of a complicated thing here. Pretty much all European airlines, their base fare, some fare amongst the others, they offer a fare that does not include cabin bags beyond the one small backpack, purse, laptop, whatever that will fit under the seat in front of you. But almost all European airlines also offer that one step up that usually includes a bunch of other things bundled in, like priority boarding or other things you might not need, and inclusive of that extra bag. You can, of course, buy that extra bag separate. Looking at Ryanair, a random search from Dublin to Hamburg right now, the minimum step up for that one carry-on bag is $32.45, which is less than the minimum spend to get to the smallest bundle that includes a bag, which was $48. So there is a savings in just paying for the bag. But Ryanair kind of really makes you jump through a hoop to find that fare that does not include a cabin bag, because they, like all airlines, they don't actually want you to book basic. They want you to book the highest possible thing or the most possible ancillaries. But it's a bit conflicting. I don't like the regulators mandating what an airline can and can't do in this regard. There are times where I don't need a bag, so I don't want to pay extra to have something included that I don't need. But a lot of people, I'm sure, fall into the trap of unintentionally booking a fare that does not include a cabin bag, and then they get to the gate and have to pay £100 or whatever the case to bring that bag on board. So not everyone can win in this situation. IATA, for its part, declares this a total loss. The headline from them is EU 261 reform misses the mark on delays and competitiveness. They actually don't even really talk about the bags, but they're more kind of pissed off that the status quo is staying after apparently 13 years of discussion. It puts some brackets in place for compensation when flights are delayed or canceled, but they have been trying to get rid of this particular component of EU 261 forever, and they ain't too happy that it's not going away.
No. So what airlines have been arguing for is let's get rid of this entirely.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
What a more realistic scenario they were arguing for, or what they were really trying to get, was at least a 5-hour limitation on paying compensation rather than the 3 or 4 as it currently exists. I think that it didn't happen. The argument here was that it would have been easier for airlines to find alternate flights for those passengers and still get them where they are going, rather than just canceling flights because of a lengthy delay. Because once the delay, they were saying, well, we just cancel the flight anyway if there's going to be a delay. So they were arguing that they would have the ability to operate more flights and the ability to find disrupted passengers better arrangements. The EU Parliament didn't buy that.
I don't necessarily believe that, though. I don't buy that either. Flights are always so full, and there are often not enough frequencies to shuffle everyone around anyway. So I think this was the right decision. But going off script here, looking through IATA's press releases, we didn't pick up on this, but they also, earlier this month, launched a Save a Life, Not a Bag passenger safety campaign with a very nice animation and video about what not to do when you're evacuating an aircraft, which is chiefly stop trying to rescue your bags when you could be hampering the evacuation while other people are trying to save their own lives. And apparently the animated owl in this situation is really, really not great. Nobody likes this owl in this video.
The owl is creepy.
It is a little creepy. Actually, there's a bunch of animals in this all doing things you shouldn't do. I don't know where this video will be played.
That's what IATA gets for letting a bunch of wild animals on an airplane.
Right? They don't know what a bag is. They just know that they're on an airplane and what's going on. But it is nice to see more attention being paid to the evacuation issues on board. Again, I don't know what's going on with this video where it's shown, but they do say that more research is needed to help quantify the need for action, which I think is pretty quantifiable at this point, watching just about any video of a cabin evacuation, which itself is problematic that there are people taking video unless they strap a GoPro to the top of their head and doesn't possibly slow down situation. But apparently they say there's a significant gap in knowledge among travelers that could result in disaster. Many, many airlines at this point roll into their safety briefing that, hey, in the unlikely event of an evacuation, leave your bags on board. But I don't think it's really firm enough. It should really be repeated and then smashed over people's heads at this point. But there's a lot of other stuff in those safety videos that's also important. So it's just yet another thing that people don't pay attention to.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about this before. Some of the stats are pretty interesting from the IATA survey that was conducted among passengers in the United States, the UK, the UAE, and Singapore. They found that 80% of passengers surveyed claimed to know what to do in an emergency evacuation, yet only 61% correctly answered that they should leave all personal items and exit the aircraft. 33% said they had seen reports of people taking their baggage during an evacuation. Of these, 22% indicated that they were likely to do the same.
Yes, and 38% indicated that they think it would take 3 minutes or more to evacuate an aircraft. So, what's an extra couple seconds?
Well, if everybody's grabbing their bag, that's true.
Yeah, but there are cases where we know, like that JAL A350, you could do it in a heartbeat. If you do everything by the book, and even with half the exits, 90 seconds. That's the most it can take. Well, that's really the benchmark. It can and does take more sometimes, but 90 minutes is what they say the safety minutes. Maybe in America with all our bags, but 90 seconds is the safety benchmark. But somehow only 38% of people had that right idea. Yet 1 in 10 passengers admitted that even knowing all of that, they may still take bags during an evacuation or follow others who do, even when instructed not to. Those are the people who, if you happen to see doing that, you have my permission to smash them over the head to get out of the way because they are intentionally slowing things down. And if they get left behind, they get left behind. They did it to themselves.
All right. Well, we'll put a link to the creepy owl video in the show notes if you want to watch that.
The educational creepy owl video.
The educational creepy owl video. Absolutely. Let's head to Sydney, where in October of 2027, so a little more than a year from now, Qantas will launch its first Project Sunrise flights to London.
Oh, so I'm still going to have to make a stop if I want to go to...
You're going to have to go to Auckland first.
Oh, man. Yeah. But next, maybe, soon, next.
Yes.
They will offer the flight that I admittedly still don't want to take.
Well, it will be next. So there are 12 A350-1000ULRs on order to Qantas. The first batch of 6 aircraft will be dedicated to Project Sunrise flights only. So that will be Sydney to London and Sydney to JFK. That second batch will then take over some of the other ultra long haul flying that's just a little bit shorter. So Perth, London, and Auckland, JFK, amongst a few other possible routes. So those flights are currently operated by 787-9s. And while the 787-9 can do those flights, it's not really designed for those routes. And Qantas sees itself moving those aircraft off those routes to other routes where it can make a lot more money rather than operating the 787-9. And one of the routes that might switch to is Chicago. Because as we all know, Qantas has really wanted to fly to Chicago for the better part of 2 decades. And every time they announce the Chicago flight, something bad happens. So at this point, I'm a little superstitious about them announcing a date for flying to Chicago, because then I know something bad is going to happen.
Yeah, didn't Air New Zealand also actually launch Chicago flights for like 15 minutes before COVID?
They operated for a little bit, yep, before and after. So that was a moment. But every time Qantas announces that they're going to fly to Chicago, you get a global financial crisis, you get a global pandemic. I mean, just nothing good every time they announce a date for their flights to Chicago.
Awesome. These are some very, very long flights, yet still not the longest in the world currently. Just looking at the JFK to Auckland flight, of which there are two airlines, because Air New Zealand also offers this, of course, but these flights push 17 hours takeoff touchdown time. That, I know we've talked about this before, but that doesn't actually mean the entire time you're on board the aircraft, because at JFK, you could be taxiing for an hour and a half and also boarding for an hour before you actually push back. So what is actually 17 hours in the air could be more like 19 hours on board the aircraft. Now we're stretching another couple hours. I know we've talked about this so many times, but every time we do, I just get like antsy and think 19 hours on board the plane. Beyond that, like 20 plus hours. It's nice that they're finally going to have these purpose-built aircraft for it instead of just throwing the 787-9 on it as they are today, but like incremental gains, incremental at best, in economy at least.
Yeah, they see a market for this, and they say they see a market for an economy class product. This is something that I would be super interested to talk to someone who's like, absolutely, I want to do this in economy, and see what their, I guess, use cases for a nonstop flight, what makes it better in their eyes? Or is it just going to be something where it's slightly cheaper and then...
I thought it was going to be more expensive.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly why you would choose this if you're in economy, but Qantas says they see a market here and they see an economic opportunity for an economy cabin on these flights. That said, if it doesn't work out for them, they're certainly leaving themselves open to adjust the cabin configuration.
Yes, can and almost certainly would in that case.
Yeah. Let's stick with a conversation about Airbus because Airbus this week opened a second A320neo final assembly line in Toulouse, making it their 10th A320neo family final assembly line around the world.
Where did they find that space? Was that the
A380
line? Yeah.
Yep.
So amazing that the A380 has been out of production for so long and they're just now finishing converting that space to the 320, which did they already complete that in Hamburg?
The full redo of the A380 space?
Yeah.
I believe so.
I think they did, which they didn't actually assemble the 380. They did cabin or
finishing touches.
Yeah, finishing touches there in Hamburg. But yeah, it's good stuff. That's 10 lines compared to
10 lines.
Boeing's maybe 2 one day.
3 and possibly 4.
Maybe 2 locations, that is. So they'll have a couple of lines, but maybe this year, maybe, probably not. We'll see the 7-3 line spin up. I don't know if that's going to happen this year, but it's going to happen eventually.
I mean, if they want to get to the rate that they want to get to, it'll have to happen.
Just thinking about the logistics of having a final assembly in Hamburg and Toulouse and Mobile and Tianjin, that is truly, truly a global operation, all to build the same exact thing.
Yeah. There's 4 lines in Hamburg. There's 2 in Toulouse, 2 in Mobile, and 2 in Tianjin. So who knows?
Could be India one day.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is to, by next year, produce between 70 and 75 A320neo family aircraft per month.
It's a lot. We'll see what the supply chain has to say about that, because maybe not.
Because so far the supply chain says no.
No, supply chain says no. I don't think we're ever going to do that again.
We'll see how far we get. Spirit Airlines, or Spirit's holding company parent, has gotten the go-ahead by the bankruptcy court to auction off its assets, which include the owned A320s and the LaGuardia slots. And some interesting bidders are lining up, Jason.
Yeah, I'm reading in your notes here, and you say Florida Air Express and Mooney International. Surely that can't be right. You must have misspelled Delta and United.
I did not. So I'm not saying that they're going to win, but there are some interesting possibilities here. Florida Air Express wants to start up an ultra low-cost carrier based in Florida. Stop me if you've heard this one before.
No, denied.
They would start by flying within the state and then expand up to New York because they want the LaGuardia slots as well. They would expand up to New York, and then they would take delivery of A320neos or A321XLRs and begin flying internationally.
No, to none of any of that. The good thing about slots is, though, they are use them or lose them in most cases. So if some weirdo entity were to somehow end up being the highest bidder, which doesn't seem that out of the realm of possibility, if a speculator comes in with dark money and buys up these slots as an investment, I don't know if there are rules preventing that, but it seems like that is something that could happen. You have to actually operate the slots, or the FAA will yoink them back and redistribute them or put them back up for sale or whatever. But it is good to know that, much to the dismay of the Port Authority here, these are technically assets of the airline that get to be auctioned off. But Ian, this is a wild card. I didn't put this in the show notes because I forgot. You know what is not a part of Spirit Airlines assets to be redistributed to its debitors, basically?
I don't.
Okay, good. Honeywell put a memo in with the United States Bankruptcy Court, Southern District of New York, saying, hey, Spirit Airlines had 5 auxiliary power units, known as APUs, that are not actually Spirit's. They're our property. They were loaners to the airline. They belong to Honeywell, and please do not sell them to anyone as the aircraft are parted out or sold or otherwise moved on to a new airline. Those belong to us, but also we don't know where they are. So if you could help us find them, that'd be great.
Oh, great.
Yeah. The quote literally says, the Honeywell APUs belong to Honeywell. Spirit was simply allowed to use the Honeywell APUs under the terms and conditions of the MSA. So APUs are very expensive, but they also seem to break a lot. And I guess much like if you have a new car and it has an issue, you bring it to the dealer and they will maybe give you a loaner. That seems like the case here, where Honeywell had a few loaner APUs, which are not inexpensive assets, that were installed in aircraft, or maybe not. Maybe they're not even in aircraft, but nobody seems to know. So they have filed with the court to say, hey, these belong to us, not Spirit. Please return them promptly if you happen to find them somewhere.
If you see a Honeywell APU just sitting around an airport near you, give Honeywell a call, I guess.
More or less, yeah. Thanks, Rob, for pointing that one out. That was a funny read.
Whoops. AirAsia X is delaying its Bahrain hub. Surprise.
Yeah, probably a good idea. At least for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So the plan there was for the airline to begin flights from Malaysia to Gatwick in London via a new hub in Bahrain. Bahrain, for those that aren't sitting in front of a map, is located on the Persian Gulf, which, as listeners to this podcast will know, has been the subject of a bit of tension over the past few months. So the airline's saying, you know what? We think this is a good plan commercially. We just don't think the timing is right.
We're going to take a pause. Yeah.
They're going to wait until later in the fall or early winter to put that into play, assuming no further delays. Jason, we talked, I think, 2 weeks ago about Swiss parting out some of its A220-100s. Now we have 3 more A220 part outs. These will be 300s. Former Egypt Air A220-300s that were acquired by Azora are going to Delta Material Services for Delta's fleet. So they announced in April that they were going to part out 1 A220-300 from the former Egypt Air fleet. That has now risen to 4. They will be able to keep those spare parts, and then the engines will also be leased to Delta for use in their fleet.
Gotta get what you can get where you can get it, I guess. Were these the A220s that didn't actually fly for Egypt Air? They flew for like a subsidiary of Egypt Air and then quickly were yoinked out of service, seemingly out of nowhere. Everyone speculated
that did happen, but I'm not sure exactly which.
These are the same ones.
Which MSNs are the ones that are being parted out.
Yeah. Such a shame. Not even the original 100s. These are A350-300. So
Yep.
firmly in Airbus produced territory at this stage. That's crazy. But then again, we see like year-old Spirit A320neos getting parted out. So you got to do what you got to do. And Delta's got a lot of A220s that needs to keep alive. So not terribly surprising, but still disappointing and sad.
Yeah. So I went down an interesting rabbit hole on Delta Material Services. I did not know that they existed.
No, I'm familiar with Delta Tech Ops and Delta Services and all sorts of other units of Delta, but Material Services is a new one to me.
Yeah. Delta Material Services is the sole provider of used material to Delta Airlines. So it's functionally named. Some of the photos of the warehouse are just incredible.
What is it, like the Indiana Jones movie where they go into the warehouse and it's just an endless rows of A220 parts?
That's exactly what it looks like with better lighting. Yes. All sorts of stuff. So it's one of the world's largest buyers of used aircraft parts, engines, components. They have a warehouse that's just shrink wrapped engines sitting around. I'll put a link to the website in the show notes.
Sounds like a prime candidate for a tour and podcast episode.
It sure does, doesn't it?
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Delta subsidiary. Are they even a subsidiary? Because looking...
They are a wholly owned subsidiary of Delta Airlines.
Wow. They are missing from the Delta Airlines Wikipedia entry, who lists Tech Ops, the Trainer Refinery, Unify Aviation, and Clear Secure as their subsidiaries, even down to 5%, but not this one. So this one does quite a bit fly under the radar.
Yeah. So, I mean, very cool stuff that they're doing. And the little kind of hero video they have at the top of their website's worth a bit of a watch. So enjoy that. And sorry, parted out A220s. Jason, we've been doing this podcast almost 10 years. And I think that one of the first stories we talked about was Norwegian and how they were faring. And for a while, Norwegian's ups, mostly downs, was a long-running topic of the podcast. And then they stopped their long-haul flying. They got rid of all of their 787s. They went back to their Nordic short-haul, bread and butter, low-cost flying, and it's worked really well for them. They bought Widerøe. They moved into basically even shorter haul space. And now they're saying, hey, let's buy ourselves a leisure travel group.
Oh, yeah, just for $843 million US dollars. Where did it get that money? This is an airline that was always on the verge of not existing anymore. How did that happen?
Well, they really have turned around in not astounding fashion, but something short of astounding. They executed on their plan to operate 737s around Europe very well. Then this comes along and it seems like it sort of makes sense. They're buying Nordic Leisure Travel Group, which owns Sun Class Airlines, which is based out of Denmark. They own a set of hotels and package travel. And it'll all be separate from Norwegian, except that it'll feed the Norwegian and Widerøe will be used to feed passenger traffic to these leisure packages, which seems to all make sense. It's just low-cost carriers, generally speaking, don't have a great history of purchasing package carriers and doing well.
Wait a minute. Do you know what this means, Ian? That finally, years after it gave up its hopes and dreams of wide-body flying, they're back because Sun Class Airlines operates 3 A350-900neos.
Yep.
So a bit of a roundabout way here, but we're back in a situation where Norwegian Air has wide-body aircraft. Not going to do the same things that it did with the 787s, I don't think, but it's got them, and it can do whatever they want with it.
I mean, I guess. So the idea is that this will be all integrated into one flow for passengers. The businesses themselves will be separated out. And they're saying that the Sun class, Norwegian, and Vero networks have limited overlap, is what they say. So, yes, that makes perfect sense. But I guess they wanted this for reasons. It's not quite clear to me what they get out of all of this headache
I don't know.
to operate a full package carrier.
I don't know, but seemingly someone over there does know. Very fascinating story arc for Norwegian, which was on the bubble again of not existing. But they're doing what they think is right. And I think it's just also hilarious that when I search on my phone for North Atlantic and DuckDuckGo, all I get is served an ad for Norwegian Air, which is odd because they don't serve the same market. But hey, they've got A330s now, so maybe they will one day. Again, please don't do that. Don't do it.
They're all going to sunny destinations from Northern Europe. I don't see that happening.
Surely they couldn't fall for that again.
No, absolutely not. KLM is looking to take its first A350 in August and begin service between Amsterdam and Toronto in September, with one of the large caveats being that all of the business class seats will be blocked.
Now, surely you're reading notes from a few months ago where Lufthansa was operating its first aircraft with new business class to Toronto without any of the seats actually available. Surely you must be mistaken.
Or Toronto.
What's the deal here? Why does Toronto always get the new aircraft that don't have any business class seats available to book? It's twice this year alone, which is very odd, very coincidental.
It can't be coincidence. It's got to be something special about Toronto.
I mean, surely Toronto can't be that low yield a market. Surely you're not going to send a JFK, but like, I don't know, maybe Kansas City or something. I don't know. Toronto seems like there would be enough demand for premium cabins, but that's strange. But it's deja vu all over again. We don't, or the industry and observers, we should probably call John Walton for some support on this one, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be in a Lufthansa Allegris situation that's not drawn out for months or even years at a time. This should hopefully be quicker, but yet again, an airline was a little over ambitious with its business class product and is now being stung by certification issues, or in this case, I think the rules were changed a little bit, and they're still working on adopting their certification to those new rules. But this is not stuff that you saw happen years ago. This is all new stuff, and it's happening again. Poor Toronto. Hopefully, nobody was actually booked and has to get downgraded or rebooked or anything. But that's a lot of revenue being left on the table.
Yeah. So hopefully that gets resolved soon, and you can book all of the seats on KLM's new A350s. That's new plane. Let's talk old plane. Because of the dramatic rise in fuel prices, Icelandair says it is accelerating the retirement of its 757 fleet. The airline currently has 8 in the fleet remaining, 6 of which are in regular passenger service. 2 are used for specialty transports around the world, extravaganzas, and most recently, flying World Cup teams to North America. These aircraft were supposed to last through next year before being retired, but because of the high cost of fuel, the airline says, we're done.
Don't like that at all.
No,
the Icelandair without the 757 just doesn't feel right to me. I don't like it.
Maybe they'll keep a few around as charters for a little while, and it'll just be the ones in regular passenger service that go by the end of the year, but that's a bummer.
Does Icelandair still have the 76s, or are those also now gone entirely?
They're still operating
3 of them. They still got 3
of them. Yeah.
Yeah. That was more so than the 757. That was always my favorite modern-ish Icelandair aircraft because it was just so much more comfortable than the 75s, because who doesn't like a 76? But at least no one announced plans to get rid of those on any accelerated timeline. So, hey, that's something.
They're going away soon, but they'll be around for as long as they're around.
Shh, let me hope.
Okay, I'm sorry. Things that aren't supposed to happen include aircraft taxiing into light masts or various poles. and things like that.
It happens sometimes. It happens. It happens. Sometimes people aren't doing their job or not doing their job right, or you're not having a good day. And sometimes wings clip light poles. It happens.
Yeah. And in this case, it was one of the least 777s being operated, that was operated by Indigo from Turkish Airlines. And I think carried 12,000 passengers. Is that what it was one of those like super.
We were never able to get an actual count because legend has it that they never stopped boarding this airplane.
It
was an aircraft they were using for Hajj flights between Jeddah, Istanbul, domestic within Turkey as well. I'm not sure if this is one that also operated up to Russia at any point for like a max PAX configuration. But this airplane ain't going anywhere anytime soon, or maybe never again.
It's got a real big gash in the side, right behind the wing. It does not look good.
No, the airplane messed with the light pole, and the light pole won, because in this case, it wasn't a simple steel light pole, which usually would result in like, oh no, you bent the winglet or whatever, slap a new one on. This was a lattice tower, which happened to have, I guess, a light at the top or some other. I actually don't know if this was a light tower. It was some sort of light mast. The mast collapsed and not only damaged the wing, but punctured a big old hole in the side of the airplane. We've seen aircraft come back from a lot worse than this, but this was not by any means a new aircraft. This was a 17-year-old 777-300ER. It might be one of those cases where it's more valuable to part it out, take those precious GE90s off, slap it on something new, than actually fix this airplane. But somewhere over at Delta Material Services, they're probably looking at this and go, parts.
In Pakistan, the final law providing for the privatization of Pakistan International Airlines has now been signed. This caps a more than decade-long effort to make sure that the government isn't the majority owner of the airline. Whether this is good, bad, will happen all over again remains to be seen. But now things seem official, so good luck, Habib Group. We wish you all the best.
Good luck to them. I bet they didn't see the price of fuel doubling right after they signed on this airline that is functionally obsolete. It still has no orders placed for more efficient, newer aircraft. So good luck with that. I'm not sure they know what they got themselves into, but they must.
I hope so. Let's close the show with the Pope.
As we all often do, yeah.
That's exactly right. The Pope was on a tour of Spain and was down in the Canary Islands. He was on Tenerife when he boarded an Iberia A320 to go home, but the aircraft was broken, so then he got off the plane. What do you do in that situation, Jason?
This is where the story gets good, though. Well, usually EU 261 rules say you've got 4 hours before compensation kicks in or the flight is canceled. But this is the Pope we're talking about. So the King of Spain offered his personal aircraft to get the Pope home. Several members of the delegation as well.
Take my Falcon jet.
Yeah, take my Falcon. It's no big deal. I'm the King of Spain, which today I learned there's a King of Spain. So that's cool. Yeah, but the reason stated that the aircraft broke here in this Reuters article is a bit of a head scratcher. I'm literally scratching my head. I'm just going to read here. In announcements made after the Pope had disembarked, the captain said the engine had likely failed to start because of the wind. He said the issue could not be resolved immediately and that passengers would have to leave the plane. What? Huh?
I mean, I was dealing with getting a blimp out of a hangar all week. I don't know.
It was too windy to blimp, but maybe there's a mistranslation here or things got lost in a game of telephone, but the engine failed because of the wind
So it sounds like there was a technical issue because the wind was too strong. And so the engine wouldn't start. I'm not even sure what that means.
No, it's not something I've ever heard before, and airplanes often operate in windy places all the time. I've been to Chicago before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if there's a limitation on, because this particular aircraft is an A320-200 powered by two CFM56 engines. I've never heard of it being too windy to start a CFM56.
There's got to be more to this story that's not checking out to me at all.
If you know anything about this, please email us at podcast@fr24.com because I'm really interested. Because I'm sure there's an explanation here. I just cannot fathom what it is at the moment.
I'm sure there is. The captain of the flight operating the Pope is not going to cancel a flight and kick him off the plane willy-nilly because his friends and coworkers will never let this one down. Like, remember that time you kicked the Pope off your plane? Yeah, it was too windy.
Can you imagine you're trying to get the engine started and you realize that, okay, we need to go tell them.
Oh, man, I left the light on and the battery's dead, which is a thing you can do on an airplane. That is a thing that happens. They do have batteries, and the batteries needed to start the plane. And if you leave the light on in the flight deck, plane no start. But that doesn't seem to be the case here. But also, if you are the king of Spain and you're a listener, look us up because we'd like a flight on your Falcon Jet too.
Can we have a ride too? I like that pitch. We'll see if it works. Oh, poor Pope. Well, the Pope got home. The entourage of media and other folks traveling with the Pope had to take a later flight, but they eventually got home too. Not on a Falcon jet, but they did eventually get home on another Iberia flight.
The king could only spare one jet today.
Exactly. Well, this has been episode 375 of AvTalk. I am Ian Petchnick, here as always with
Jason Rabinowitz. Thanks for listening.